everyone. I think we need to start. It's already 8:17. We already lost 17 minutes waiting. So again, today we'll be discussing step 4, monetize the impacts. And as an introductory, let us discuss first what we mean by shadow prices versus market prices. So when you say market prices, this is the price in the market, with the term itself, market prices. So what do you mean by shadow prices? From the term itself, shadow, so it's like a shadow of the market prices. So when you say shadow, this is actually the estimated value of a resource or commodity that does not have a market price. So it represents usually the total cost of a certain commodity. Ay, morning. It's usually the cost of a certain commodity that doesn't have a market price. So if we're gonna go back to the slide, monetizing impacts into cost and benefits. So is there a market price for the input or output? Question mark. So if no, then you use the shadow price. If yes, there is, then is there any distortion in the market? When you say distortion, these are the factors that could cause a change of prices, change of price or change of value of the goods and services in the market. So if there is a distortion in the market, then you need to use shadow prices if it's a yes. If no, then use the market prices. So that's the introductory thing that topic or insights that we need to take note for today's discussion. So when market price exists, then therefore we need to use the market price. If the market price does not exist, then therefore we need to use the shadow prices. So in particular, let's talk about how we can approach doing an economic assessment of the environment impacts of a project or a policy. That is why today we'll be discussing the general premises on how we can monetize the impact of a certain project, which is now considered as the shadow price. So we will discuss the general premises, the concept of total economic value, which we already discussed. That's why I told you earlier that this will be a very quick discussion because we have discussed this already. And of course, the methodologies for economic assessment. I hope you can still remember the assignment that you presented, the group assignment that you presented in class, where um, each group actually gave an example for each methodology. So again, that's the reason why this class will be quick for today. So let's go first to the general premises. So general premises, the environment and the ecosystem produce goods and services that are useful to humans. Because then again, why would we produce something if it's not useful to humans? So example to that is anything that could contribute to the well-being of humans or that are valued by humans, because again it doesn't only uh not we do not only talk about food here, we do not only talk about gasoline here, but anything that could be considered that it has value by humans. For example, looking at the landscape, we can have a bequest or altruistic value to that. So anything that humans can consider that it has a value. So examples of goods and services, for example, provided by service water, like water supply. Of course, it provides water for drinking, for cooking. Manufacturing, it of course, without manufacturing, there will be no power generation, there will be no industrial uses if there's no manufacturing. Irrigation, of course, for crops and for our parks, and of course, aquaculture. Another general premises that we should consider is, of course, the supply of goods other than water, like fish, waterfall, clams, mussels, and other. And at the same time, non-extracted services like flood control. It's a non-extractive, but it gives value to human because, of course, it protects us from floods. Transportation. Can you imagine yourself attending a class at 9 a.m. and then you're just gonna walk from your residences, which is what 2 hours away, then maybe so it would entail you like 3 hours of walking. So those are non-extractive services: recreational swimming, pollution dilution, bird and wildlife habitat, and the others. So example of goods and services provided by wetlands, for example, as a general premises, that again, anything that is valued by humans, that are valued by humans. So biodiversity, I think we know about this because you have a lot of subjects that talks about biodiversity. Of production inputs like water quality improvements, water conservation, flood mitigation, and abatement. So the general premises is that the government and ecosystem produce goods and services that are useful to humans. Then again, anything that contribute to the well-being of humans and that are called valued by humans. So these are, for example, from the higher hierarchy to the lower, ecosystem structure, the ecosystem services that are valued by humans as well, and of course, the goods and the services that are really consumed by human beings. So, and of course, it is important. That is why, as we have discussed last meeting, that when we do economic analysis, we consider all the potential impacts. In which when we consider all potential impacts, it does not only consider a certain aspect of the impact of the project. We need to consider all the possible impacts, because all those possible impacts could actually influence or could actually give an adverse impacts to ecosystems and services, or any goods and services that are valued by human. So that is why in both ecological and economic analysis and modeling, we always consider economic assessment, because any change in the ecosystem, if we're gonna go back to this one, any change in ecosystem structure, any change in ecosystem processes would affect the goods and the services. And if would affect the goods and services, then therefore it will be human beings will be affected. That is why, again, making a point that when we do economic assessment or economic analysis, we need to include all potential impacts of the project. All potential impacts, may it be positive, may it be negative, all potential impacts of the project. So the key issue in the general premises is to provide a strong conceptual framework to guide the economic assessment of the environmental impacts of the project. So in this case, that is why when we if we do the economic assessment, we need to consider all the environmental impacts of the project, even though there are difficulties in having all the potential environmental impacts because of the, well, we have discussed it yesterday, that there are cases that there are things that are unknown, science is incomplete. Worse is there is no data, there is data, but it is incomplete. Worse is there is no data. So that is why, in the concept of ecosystem analysis, we consider the concept of total economic value. Can you still remember the TEV, which we have discussed in the last few weeks? We even discussed it in the earlier start of our class. Can anyone remember TEV? What are those? What is the formula of TEV? Okay, so TEV is the summation of all the values, the use value and the non-use value. So that is why, again, if let me reiterate, when we do economic assessment, we consider all the possible potential impacts of the project. And in that case as well, we need to consider, when we do cost benefit analysis or benefit cost analysis, we need to consider as well all the benefits and cost of the project. And for us to do this is, of course, we consider the concept of total economic value. The total economic value actually considers all the use and the non-use value, including in the total economic value, we consider the use and the non-use value. We also consider the indirect and the direct of the use value, and of course, the other non-use value. So why it is called total economic value? Because we do not only focus on the extractive aspect of the environment, but we also consider those non-extractive services. So that's why, again, it is called total economic value. If we're gonna go back as well to graph, I think I presented this, well, not exactly like this, but total economic value, again, is the addition, the summation of the use and the non-use value. If the project has an indirect use and direct use, then we need to add it. If the project has a non-use value, for example, bequest value and existence value, then we need to add it for us to be able to fully monetize, to really give a value to the project. So again, that is why we use the concept of economic value. So we already discussed this, what we mean by consumptive direct value. So when you say consumptive, an example of this is where we extract resources directly from the environment. That's why it is called consumptive direct use value. And non-consumptive naman is, this is a kind of value where the ecosystem gives services directly provided by the environment. So for example, bird watching, hydropower production. It is not, it is consumptive, non-consumptive, but direct use because we are not consuming it, but we are directly using it. Can you still remember this discussion in the last few chapters that we had? So we have discussed this as well, option use value. When you say option use value, if you have another, there are individuals that would opt for these services, for these goods of services, than the other, which is actually also discussed in resource economics, where the society will actually always have a preference, even if it's expensive. But if that's the preference of the society, they would go for it. So for the non-use value, again, these refer to the values where people hold that are not associated with the use of ecosystem or goods or services. So for example, existence value, bequest value, in which we have discussed this already as well in the previous chapters. So for example, on this example, application of concept to wetlands. So for example, ecosystem structure and ecosystem services that is part of the ecosystem. So how can we put values to that? So the goods and services that is being given or provided by the wetland, those are the goods and the services. So whatever the total value of the goods and services of the wetlands, that is considered as the economic value. And it considers the use and the non-use value. So what can we get from the wetland? For example, we can get from the wetland, kung mo it isda, we can extract fishes from it. You can go fishing. If it's a huge wetland, that's a direct, that's consumptive. Non-consumptive is filtration of water by the wetlands is considered as non-consumptive, but we are directly using it. When you say non-use value of the wetlands, we can actually consider existence value because just for its existence, we feel good for the wetland just by existing. So we can input existing value to that. So if we're gonna look at as well on a much bigger scale of the wetland, for example, I hope you can see my slide and my cursor. So if we're gonna look at on the wetland function, that's actually the ecology of the wetland. And wetland characteristics, these are the different wetland characteristics, and this is the structure and the processes that the wetland can do. So the structure, it has biomass, it has sediments, it's habitat for flora and fauna, and the processes that it can do is photosynthesis, transpiration, and decomposition. Those wetland functions can already have an economic value. Let's go to the interface. When you say interface, that is the interface between the wetland functions and the wetland uses. So the goods and the services that we get from the wetland. So if we're gonna go down, which is on the economic aspects, this is how we put values to the wetland. Direct use value, the fish that we can extract, the agriculture that we can do with the wetland. For example, we can extract water, fuel for wood, recreation, transport, wildlife harvesting, which is, I think, wrongly, wildlife harvesting. I think that's I would not agree to that, wildlife harvesting, but that is one of the direct values, direct use values that we can get from the wetland. And direct, for example, is flood control, because we know that wetlands are like sponges. Um, it could also be a groundwater recharge, flood control, not nutrient retention as well. And for the non-use values is for the biodiversity, the cultural and heritage of the wetland, and of course, the bequest value of the wetland. So basically, if we're going to categorize that, the direct use and indirect use of the wetland are considered as the use values. And the non-use values is the biodiversity, cultural heritage, and the bequest. And for us to do or calculate the total economic valuation, of course, that's the addition of the use and the non-use value. And we would now consider that as the wetland value. Do we have questions on this total economic value? Questions, please, from anyone? Do we have? All right. So if we don't have questions, we'll go now on the monetization step 4 on the methodologies for economic assessment. So we actually discussed this a lot of times. Everyone, I am expecting and assuming that every one of you already had understood the different methodologies, because each method was actually presented by everyone as an example. So let's just run through it. So these are the methodologies for economic assessment. This was actually flushed earlier, where total economic value is equal to the use and the non-use value. So the methods of economic assessment actually has 3 groups, or we call it as 3 valuation approaches. The 3 valuation methods, if you can remember, is the direct market valuation, revealed preferences, and the stated preferences. In this methodologies for economic assessment, group 1 is actually, we will call it as change of productivity methodology. Because because the direct valuation method, because in this context, we are explaining, if we're going to go back to the first slide, if you took a screenshot, that in the context of total economic valuation, if we have the market value, we will use the direct market value. But if we do not have the direct market value or the market value, then we will be using the shadow prices. And the shadow prices represents the total economic valuation. So this is why in the 3 groups of methodology, these are the 3 groups that we acknowledge in the economic assessment. Because if, again, let me go back, I hope you will be able to answer this in the exam. Let me go back. That if we have the data, if we have the direct market value where there is no distortion, there is no shadow price, then we use that value. There is no, we do not need to do the total economic valuation. But if we do not have, we use the shadow prices. And that is where the total economic valuation would come in. But the good thing with total economic valuation is it does not only consider the use value. Again, if we're going to go back to the previous discussions, market value only considers the direct consumption, the goods and the services. It doesn't consider the other values like the non-use values and the use values. So that is why it is way better if you do economic analysis using the total economic valuation. If you're going to use the direct market, then that would be an under calculation. So again, if we're going to go back, methodologies for economic assessment, we have 3 groups that we consider. The change of productivity methodology, the revealed preferences, and the stated preferences. So we will not be discussing much of the revealed preferences and the stated preferences because we have discussed this a lot of times already in the subject. But let's go ahead with the change of productivity methodology. So we have here in the graph where there is a use value, there is a direct use value, and there is an indirect use value. The consumptive direct use value, that is where the group 1 change of productivity methodology could be applied. For the non-consumptive value, and indirect use value, that's where the group 3 and 2 can be applied, which is the revealed preferences and the stated preferences. That is again for the non-consumptive and indirect use value. If we're gonna go down to the lower part of the, if we're gonna go down as well on the slide, the bequest value and the existence value can be addressed by group 3, which is the stated preferences. So let's go directly to group 1, change of productivity methodology. So this method is generally applied in the specific case where environmental impact assessments represents a change in a component of the environment or ecosystem which has a direct consumptive value. Because again, if we're going to go back to this one, consumptive direct use value, that is where we can apply group 1 as a change of productivity method. So this impact will be measured by a change in the production of a good for which there is already a market and therefore market prices. So market prices or shadow prices will be used to assess the economic impact of this change in a productivity. So let me give you an example of a change of productivity methodology. So for example, water pollution may impact fisheries yield. So if you already have the data of the yield of the fisheries, then you can already calculate how much would be the value of the water pollution as it affects the fishery yield. So, for example, floods may impact agriculture production. How can you do it? Change of productivity. How much is the agricultural production or the harvest for this season? And if there will be flood, how much will be lost? So you already have a data to what would be the effects of floods and the impact on the agricultural production. So, in step 1, of course, we need to establish the link or relationship that exists between the change in the environmental quality and the resulting impact of the production. So, dapat mabaron na kita nga daan na if there would be a water pollution, would it directly impact the fisheries yield? Because if it will not directly impact, then it would be difficult for us to establish the change of productivity. So dapat we will be able to identify that water pollution would directly affect the fisheries yield. So this is generally called as a dose response function. When you say dose response functions, please take note of this because magos and exam. Relationship between fisheries yield and water pollution, that there is a direct effect of the water pollution to the fisheries, and there is a direct relationship. That's what we call as dose response functions. So another example is, for example, floods and agricultural production. We need to establish that floods would directly affect the agricultural production. So we need to establish that in the environmental impact. Because then again, if we will not be able to establish a direct relationship between the two, then the change of productivity methodology will be difficult to establish. So dapat we will be sure kita heton kaiya. Then proceeds to step 2. So step 2, once change in production is established, so once we were able to establish that if there is an environmental impact, the market prices will be affected, or the shadow prices will be affected, are then used to estimate the economic value of the estimated change in production. So mai-estimate dayon naton, we will be able to estimate directly how much it affects the production. So if the usual data of fishery harvest for a certain season in the last few years is, for example, 10 tons per day, and we already have that data, and then if we are going to calculate how much would it affect if there is a pollution and we were able to establish a direct relationship between the two, then we can already put a value to the cost of the water pollution. And then by that, we can establish that there is a change of productivity because of the water pollution. So, there are two, however, in the change of productivity methodology, there are two potential difficulties. Though again, if we're gonna look at on the 3 groups, if we're gonna go back to the 3 groups for economic assessment methodologies, the change of productivity methodology is actually the easiest one. As long as you have already the data of your total harvest, for example, or fisheries harvest, and then you will be able to calculate as well the effect after the water pollution, then you already have the economic assessment. It's as easy as that. It's just a plus and a minus. If we are going to compare it with the stated and the revealed preferences, I think everyone can relate because of the environmental economic study that you have conducted. So the dose response function may be difficult to establish. So for example, in the previous example, fisheries yield does not depend only on river sedimentation. It also depends on a number of other factors. So we need to understand the contribution of these variables to productivity in order to be able to isolate the impacts of changes in the variable we are interested in. So if we're gonna go back as well to the previous example, can you remember the gastrointestinal diseases that I have showed to the class as an example, wherein there was a certain time, for example, 1989 to 1990, there was 50 to 70 cases of gastrointestinal diseases. Can you remember that example last meeting? So because of the gastrointestinal diseases, they have established the sanitation project. But after the establishment of the sanitation project, number of cases where the gastrointestinal diseases even increased to almost times two. So on that case, they actually concluded that the project was not successful. But then again, if we're gonna look at on the study, or if we're gonna critically analyze it, it means that then maybe there are other factors that causes gastrointestinal diseases. It's not only the water, if that is the case. So that is why it's very important that when we do project and we try to calculate the economic assessment or economic assessment and its environmental impacts, we will not only consider one variable, but we need to consider all the possible factors and all the variables. At the same time, that is the reason why as well it's a very good practice to consider the total economic value and not only the direct market value. So on this case, that's the problem, the difficulties with the change of productivity method. Because again, we need to establish that there is a direct relationship between the productivity and the pollution or the change of ecosystems. Because there could be other variables that leads to the impact of the change. So please take note of that potential difficulty. Second, difficulty of the dose response or for the change of productivity methodology is the relationship between input and output may be difficult to identify in the environmental impact because sometimes there are cases that it is a long-term effect. So if it's a long-term effect, how can you calculate like how long would be the impact of water pollution and the fisheries? Like would the water pollution only be affecting the fisheries for only a year? Would it be 2 years? Would it be 3 years? And how many years it would affect the productivity? So that's the two potential difficulties of change of productivity methodology. That is why, again, though this is the easiest, as long as you will be able to have the direct link of the effect of the environmental change, then you can easily get the economic impact of the project. But again, the hard part is establishing the link of the two. Question so far? Okay, so next to that is the group 2 revealed preferences, in which we will not be discussing more because we have discussed this a lot of times already. I would say a lot of times because each group actually gave an example for this one. But let me just show you an example of revealed preferences. So for example, if we have here, let's go for the travel costs, which is and the hedonic pricing, which is the one we have discussed in class. So hedonic pricing, revealed behavior is the property purchase. That's the revealed behavior. And then the types of application is property value. For the travel cost is participation in recreation activity. And types of application is the recreational demand. In the economic assessments, we have three groups: the change of productivity, the revealed, and the stated preferences based on the behavior of the people for a certain environmental quality. stated preference or economic assessment that is based on the hypothetical choice. That's the keyword, hypothetical choice of individuals by stating their preference. Questions, please? Wala na kita questions? So, of course, example of stated preference is the contingent valuation and the choice experiment. Questions, please. Wala kita questions? So again, we will not be discussing much of the stated and the preference method because we already discussed this in class with assignments from each group. Also, most of your environmental economic study are CVM. For sure, we are all well acquainted already topics with the revealed preferences and the stated preference. At the same time, we'll have a lot of examples. We'll have a lot of examples in relation to TVM with your environmental economic study. So as an overall summary for steps 1 to 4, identify all environmental impacts of the project, identify the potentially significant impacts that should be subject to economic assessment. For each impact, we need to identify the appropriate methodologies. For each methodology, identify the information needed to use the methodology. Do whatever is possible with existing sources of information. We need to identify as well the resources and the time available. And we need to undertake the primary data collection based on time and resources available. So this is also a reminder that in the future, when you do environmental economic study, you need to consider the timeline as well. Because if you have a limited time, if you were hired and you were only given like for a few months, then therefore you need to justify as well in your environmental economic study why you were not able to have a larger scope. Like, for example, you were only given 6 months and the project would actually entail other countries. So it would also mean that you need more time on having the data. So we need to always consider the time and resources available. Questions, please? An assignment. Based on your topic, on your hypothetical projects, please do the monetization. With your selected hypothetical projects, choose the appropriate method for economic assessment. So it's up to you as to what economic assessment you would use and get its total economic valuation. So again, we can only make assumptions. I will not ask everyone to get a primary data because you're already working on your environmental economic study. But in this case, para lang naton ma-experience an aton economic assessment. At the same time, we will be using those data for your benefit cost analysis calculation. So with that, this would be your assignment. Please have it in PowerPoint as well and upload it. I will create another folder for the step 2 monetization. Next meeting, we will discuss the calculation of your benefit cost analysis. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending our class. Please kindly make use of your time po. Work on something, whatever you want to work on. I hope it's class related and it's not party related or whatever. Yes. So thank you very much, everyone. Class dismissed po. See you in our next class session. Bye-bye po.